Greetings. Welcome to another video in our series of videos on liberalizing inter-African trade in wild meat. This video series is brought to you by the African Wildlife Economy Institute at Stellenbosch University in South Africa in partnership with the Atlas Network. Thank you for watching.
Liberalising the intra-African trade of wild meat from non-tariff barriers which it experiences is not something that will be resolved overnight. The recommendations in this research are a mix of technical and practical or capacity-related recommendations that require action by a variety of different groups and people. Before the AfCFTA NTB mechanism is in itself a solution to monitoring and resolving barriers, other broader barriers need to be addressed. As recommended in the other videos in this series, there is a need for training and capacity building and the combination of different backgrounds to provide harmonized positions on documents and procedures that will facilitate eased access of wild meat into different areas in the continent. If the barrier or broader requirements and permitting within the value chain is already overcome, it will have a trade facilitating effect. Taking advantage of the opportunities offered by the AfCFTA to grow trade in wild meat will be greatly facilitated by identifying and addressing non-tariff barriers that restrict the intra-African wild meat trade. This research evaluated aspects of the AfCFTA NTB reporting, monitoring and elimination mechanism, and in particular, and considered its appropriateness as a forum of dispute resolution for the barriers identified within the scope of the research. The AfCFTA mechanism is currently in its infancy and is similar in form to the NTB mechanism in place in the SADC region. The video series considered the accessibility and effectiveness of the mechanism, its suitability as a forum for the resolution of a variety of NTBs, and made recommendations for how it can be improved. The core objective of this report was to assess the ability of the AfCFTA's NTB mechanism as a tool through which to address the identified challenges and NTBs in the wild meat industry. The situations in South Africa, Namibia and Zambia were used for scoping purposes. However, the focus of this report and this video series was a general focus and remained capable of generalization. The outcome of the research was that the barriers faced by the wild meat industry are not all barriers that the AfCFTA mechanism can reasonably be expected to resolve. The recommendations were split into two categories, and there are therefore two separate videos addressing these recommendations. The first was technical recommendations related to the mechanism itself, and the second was a broader set of recommendations, broader than the AfCFTA mechanism.
So what are our next steps? How do we plan at the Institute to support intra-African trade in wild meat? Well, this research has shown us there's a definite need for capacity building to trade wild meat across the continent, both in finding out where the markets are and in finding out how to access those markets. As we've seen in this series, there is a mechanism available under the African Continental Free Trade Area to address non-tariff barriers. One of our areas of research will be how to use this mechanism, how to use the AfCFTA NTB mechanism. But of course, there are also barriers, as we've discussed, at the national level. And so another next step is to work with countries where the possibility arises to address non-tariff barriers at the national level so that the export of wild meat can be scaled up across the continent. The wild meat non-tariff barrier topic is actually part of a bigger program of work that we are undertaking on strengthening global value chains in wild meat. And so tariff barriers are one aspect of how do we get products to market, how do we produce those products, and then how do we ensure that those products are equitable, sustainable, and so on. And wild meat actually is one part of a bigger program looking at international trade in wildlife products in general. We focused on meat, but of course, even with an animal harvested for meat, there are other animal products such as hide and fat that can be used in the market and which can provide revenues both to communities and to conservation. And finally, we are looking at how to develop voluntary standards and certification schemes for wildlife products, with a particular interest at the moment on a certification scheme for wild meat, so that consumers and other stakeholders in the value chain can be assured that the products have been produced responsibly, inclusively, and sustainably. Thank you very much for watching this video series. We hope that you enjoyed it, and you're of course free to welcome to go back and watch any one of these 7 series at any time you want, or to share them with your friends. For further information, please do contact us, or also please join us on social media. You'll find us on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and on Facebook. Thank you again, and all the best.